All right, awesome. So it's noon, so I figure we'll get going, and then if people come on, they can just kind of join in where we are. So welcome to the out-of-state student panel. Myself and two other ambassadors are here to answer any and all questions that you have about what it's like to be a student at SCU from out of state, or just anything you're wondering about SCU in general. So I'll let them do their introductions, and then we'll get going into questions. So Isha, you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Isha. I'm a junior and I'm from Denver, Colorado. I'm double majoring in chemistry and political science. And right now I'm living in Santa Clara off campus, which is amazing. A few things I'm involved with at Santa Clara, if you have any questions about these, I'm a member of the University Honors Program. I am a member of an a cappella group here on campus. I do chemistry research with a professor in our chemistry department, and I'm also part of off-campus Greek life.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Rob. I am a senior. I'm from Ashland, Oregon, which is a small town just over the border from California. At school, I study engineering physics with a minor in religious studies. And then outside of the classroom, some of the things that I've been involved with, our men's ultimate frisbee team, which is one of our 17 different club level sports. I'm also a part of the UHP, the University Honors Program with Isha, and I'm a part of the Johnson Scholars Program. And I've also been involved with KSCU, which is our local radio station on campus. So if you have any questions about any of those, I'll be happy to answer.
Awesome. And then, hey, everybody, my name is Sydney. I'm also a junior at Santa Clara. I'm originally from Chicago, but I'm also in Santa Clara, just like Isha. I am a theater and child studies double major, and outside of the ambassador program, I'm also in an a cappella group on campus. Isha and I are in the same one. I'm a part of the theater department. I've performed in shows. I've worked on the crews, so I know a lot about how the arts work at Santa Clara. I'm also involved in off-campus Greek life. I was supposed to go on an immersion trip over spring break last March, but it unfortunately got canceled due to COVID, but I did all of the prep work for it. So if you want to know anything about that, I can answer those questions. And all three of us have experience either actually studying abroad or applying for study abroad, and then it got canceled this fall. So we can answer questions about that. So really this next 45 minutes is completely for you to ask questions. If you want to just type them in the chat, we can go through them that way. If you have no questions, we're just going to be sitting here on Zoom in silence for 45 minutes, which is a pretty awkward experience. So let's try to avoid that. No question is stupid, so ask anything that you want and we will answer as honestly as we can. Good question. So we have, how did you guys adjust to moving to Cali? Does anyone want, do we all just kind of want to take it from our experience? Anyone want to start?
Sure. So I moved from Colorado, so kind of a little ways away. And I actually I didn't apply to any schools in my home state. I kind of knew from the start that I wanted to have a different experience and try being away from home for a while. And so then I was actually kind of surprised by how it actually did take a little bit of an adjustment period for me. Not only being far away from my family, but also just like living on my own for the first time ever. It was very different, but I would say in terms of coming from Colorado, I actually found that the people in Santa Clara are pretty similar to the people in Colorado. So it wasn't too much of a culture adjustment, which was really nice. And I like now that I have two places to call home.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of similar to Isha. I knew when I was applying to schools that I wanted to move outside of Oregon for just at least to experience something different. Grown up in Ashland my entire life. It's a very small town. There's only 20,000 people that live there. So I was ready to try something a little bit different. And actually one of the things kind of weirdly that drew me to Santa Clara originally was that when I came on campus, there was something about the environment, the atmosphere that reminded me of home in just the right way, where it was like, oh, this feels like a little bit familiar, and I'll be feel like I'll be welcomed and comfortable here, but not to the point where it was like, oh, I'm just, I'm staying at home going to university in my local town. So from the beginning, that part was kind of interesting and unique, and I liked that about it. But then as far as actually coming here as well, there was like nobody else from my high school that came here. So it was definitely a little bit nerve wracking, like showing up to school and like being like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to make any friends. Right. Luckily for me, I mean, it was, well, lucky for a lot of people that come to Santa Clara, it's just people are so like welcoming and like easy to talk to, I guess, and especially in that like first couple of weeks when like everybody's in the same boat, like trying to make new friends, all of that kind of stuff. It definitely is easy to like, get into, if you go out to those activities, to like get into that group and like find people that way.
There wanted you there, and I know that whenever you visit a school, they're always trying to put on their best, the vibe you're getting. But I've found that in my 2-ish years at Santa Clara, that sense of community and just the sense of everyone wants to be here and everyone wants you to be here. So that was one of the main factors. It just feels like a second home.
Yeah, Sydney touched on it a little bit, but the kind of like relationships with professors was a big kind of like draw for me. So when I was going around in your guys' shoes and when I was like visiting campuses, the like main question, the one question that I made sure I always to like find a job after campus or after graduation. And like a lot of the other schools that I talked to were like, oh yeah, like our name is like really important. Like people want, people want students from our school. And I was like, that's great, but like, how do you actually go about like making those connections? And when I came to Santa Clara, they were talking about the Career Center, how like 78% of students, 79% of students have an internship by the time they graduate, things like that. And then on top of that, just like the small class sizes and those like to like helping you find positions, whether it's an internship, whether it's research, whether it's anything like that. Your professors are a really, really great resource, and being able to actually get to know your professors as people inside and outside of the classroom makes it all that much more easy to find. For me, that was a big part.
Perfect. Alrighty. So the next question, what percentage of students are from out of state? Rob, you want to take this one?
The most recent figure that I know, at least, is that I think 45% of students are from out of state and 55%. I'll say that, but I'll also say that like once you're on campus, it doesn't really feel like there's a division between like who's from out of state, who's from in state. The people that are don't choose to go home on the weekends. They choose to stick around and do any activities that are going with some of our clubs. One, for example, is called Into the Wild, and they host kind of like weekend excursions. And so a lot of people will choose to do that as well. So there's all sorts of things to do on the weekend that keep people like engaged and active on campus, no matter where they're from.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of goes into another question we had, which was, do you feel like the California students, the people from California, went home often or had cars, so we're leaving campus to socialize a lot on weekends? Rob touched really great on that. I was definitely worried that like Santa Clara was going to be like a suitcase school, which is exactly what, and I really haven't found that. There's so much to do on campus. There's clubs that always have events. There's performances or like sport games that you can go to. We can get into Santa Francisco really easily. If somebody has a car, you can go to Santa Cruz or like another beach, into the wild. There's some other great stuff like Rob was mentioning. So people generally stick around. The only times that I've found that people kind of leave, and I didn't have that op. So if there's like when we get Martin Luther King off or President's Weekend or around Easter, people would pick up and leave because we would have 3 days off or a day off leading into a weekend. So that was the only time where I was kind of like, I feel kind of alone. But there was also like a bunch of people who were still here. And I had friends who were from California who were maybe going home and they're like, hey, do you want to come with me? You can hang out with my family for the weekend. And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. Oriented. And people are very willing to accept you into all parts of their lives. And that includes, you know, if they go home, people can go home with you. So generally people stay around campus for the weekends when they become an upperclassman.
Sure. So you are required to live on campus your first 2 years. So freshman and sophomore year, you'll be on campus. And then when you become a junior and an upperclassman, you still have the option to live on campus, but most students do choose to live off campus. I will say that in other schools where you might be very far away from campus, Santa Clara is a very residential neighborhood. So like, for example, I'm sitting on my porch and I'm staring at a street from campus. So everyone's still very kind of closely together, even when you are off campus, and everything's in walking distance. In terms of what dorming is like, there are a few different options. We have residential learning communities, which is what you'll be choosing where you want to live. And we have a few that are the classic kind of double dorm style. And then we have a few that are the suite style, or mini suite style, which is really nice. And so you can choose basically when you're deciding where you want to stay, you can think about what kind of shared spaces you want to have, how social you want it to be. And we kind of have a range along all those options, which is nice. I lived in kind of the standard double my freshman year, and which I found very exciting. So I didn't find, you know, the shared bathrooms to be a problem at all. And I had a really good time kind of getting to live closely I did a random roommate, so I got to get to know my roommate really well, which was a really great way also just to meet people and just to hang out on the first 2 years. Which is really nice because there are a lot of different options. And then when you become an upperclassman, you can live on campus if you choose, but
Students assist you with learning about the area around the campus.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. To be honest, we were all kind of like getting to know the area. I do have some friends that are like a little bit closer to the area, and then it's cool to you know, be able to like show you a little bit, you know, like, oh, this neighborhood is really great or something like that in San Jose. But yeah, for the most part, actually, my experience has been like everybody that I like largely associate with is also like getting to know the area for the first time, even because like some of my friends that are from in-state, like maybe are not from exactly the Santa Clara area. And so they're kind of like getting to know the area a little bit as well too. But I mean, as far as learning about the area goes, the like public transportation makes it definitely very easy. We have Caltrain right across the street from like the main entrance to campus. So like that'll take you up to San Francisco or all the way down to Gilroy. I also like got to know the area during my first couple of years because we would go on these kind of like we would go to like tournaments down in like San Luis Obispo or up in Sonoma, and so I would get to know the area a little bit that way as well. And yeah, that was definitely a great experience as well.
Yeah, I can kind of add on really quickly. I would agree that most of my friends are from the Oregon, Seattle, Portland area, are from Santa Clara. And so she had come up to Santa Clara a lot before because she had friends who went here. And she would like take us on trips to Watsonville and like show us around Watsonville and Santa Cruz. And she was definitely very helpful when I was like, I don't want to eat Benson for dinner. Where should I go get food? And she would like have all these great recommendations. So definitely the people who are from this area know with you. So our next question is, how did you find having to make new?
I think you guys covered it perfectly, so we're all good.
Yeah, and like quick tack on to the end of Isha's thing, I think it was also a little difficult because since Santa Clara is on quarters, we start so late into September that all of my friends from back home had already been in school for like at least a month by the time we started. And they had all these friends and it looked like they were having such a good time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I should be doing that. Why isn't that happening to me? But we were all shifted back a month because we start school so much later. So it's very easy to compare what people are doing on social media and whatever to your experience, but you're gonna find your place no matter where you end up. And I think Santa Clara makes it pretty accessible to find a lot of really cool people to create your community here. The next one is, do first year students have cars? I can quickly answer this. No, you're not allowed to have a car on campus your first year. If you do have a car and you want to have it at Santa Clara for your first year, you can park it in like residential parking, so you don't need a Santa Clara University like permit for that, but you cannot park your car on campus your first year. You can starting your second year. I think it's like $400 for a permit, which is pretty expensive, but there's also a lot of parking in around the neighborhood. So if you're willing to walk a little bit to get to your car, you can have that option there. Okay, Rod, do you want to take this next one? Assuming that Italy is a popular study abroad destination, how difficult is it to get the destination that you want for study abroad?
Yeah, so Italy definitely is a popular study abroad location. I think Rome is like definitely in the top 3. So if like, I won't lie, it is definitely becoming increasingly difficult to like get your first choice in study abroad location, or just that application process is becoming a lot more competitive because a lot of people want to study abroad. That being said, like some of the things that you can do to like, if you're, for instance, very like confident that you want to go to Italy, for example, like just, you could even like start now thinking about exactly what it is that makes you like feel like you're a good fit, or makes you interested in wanting to go to Italy, because these the like people that are working on reading these like study abroad applications, the people in our study abroad office, they're like trying to fit people to make sure that they'll have the best experience possible when they go, and part of that involves making sure that people aren't just like throwing out a name that they've like heard, like, oh, I've heard France is really, really cool. So I don't speak French. I've never taken a French class, but I think I'd like to go to France. Like part of the thing that makes you, I guess, an attractive candidate for a particular location is like knowing the language there, like having some kind of like connection to the particular area, and then just making that case for why you'd like to go there. For me, I went to Cork, Ireland, so the language issue was obviously not so much a barrier, but I was still able to like find that kind of like personal connection to like why I was interested in going to Ireland. And so that's kind of just, it's a little bit of that, to bring in a Jesuit word, it's that like personal discernment, that process that you need to go through when you're thinking about that.
That was a really good answer. That was awesome. Okay, so I'll put this next one out to both of you. Anyone can answer. What effect does Silicon Valley have on your experience at SCU?
I think for me personally, it is fun. Like if you drive like 10 minutes off of campus, you start passing by like these huge tech buildings. So we are very much in Silicon Valley. I didn't know a lot about Silicon Valley before coming here. I know that the location is a big draw for people, especially people who want to go into tech and stuff like that, or like startups, because Silicon Valley is a really great place for that. But I didn't know anything about it coming in. I will say that I think that there is kind of an energy here. There's a lot of, for example, if you're looking for internships, there are always kind of startups happening, and there's always people who have connections to the big tech companies and stuff like that. And I think just in general, kind of the casual vibe that Silicon Valley has compared to like maybe some corporations that aren't in like Northern California, has kind of an impact on just kind of the environment here. Like when you're doing job interviews and stuff, it's not quite as formal because it's more of like the laid back t-shirt Google experience. So yeah, as someone who's not involved in tech and didn't really know anything about Silicon Valley, it doesn't make a huge difference to me. But I will say it does have kind of an effect on just the environment, and it is an exciting place to be for sure.
Yeah, I guess just to add kind of like maybe like a dark gray lining to that as well. Like I think that energy, there's like positives and negatives to that. Like that energy where you're like very focused on like getting an internship or like honing your resume. Our business like fraternities on campus, for example, are always putting on like LinkedIn workshops or resume building workshops and stuff like that. So it can be really great if you need that kind of help. But I will say also, to be honest, I don't know if this is a feeling that other students at other campuses have, or whether this is, just a Silicon Valley thing. But for me, that can get like a little bit stressful at times, where I feel like, oh my God, like my LinkedIn isn't perfect. Like, what am I gonna do? You know what I mean? So like that can definitely be a little bit stressful, but it is, probably, helping you find a good job in the long run. So I guess that's a positive, but it is something to manage and something to look out for, definitely.
Absolutely. That was awesome. Okay, the next question is, how did you bring all your stuff? Any tips? This is a good question. I wouldn't have thought to ask this, but yeah. So I had to fly, which, is kind of a pain, but I'm pretty lucky in that my dad has to travel a lot for work. So he's racked up like tons of mileage and points on like United or whatever. So we were able to check a couple of free bags through him. What I will say is that I kind of did like 2 rounds of clothes. So when I was coming out here, I had like all my summer stuff and, things like that. And then when I would come back after winter break, I brought some of the cooler clothes. So, sweaters, stuff like that. But yeah, I think you just have to be kind of smart about how you pack. And Bed Bath & Beyond does this really cool thing where you can go to the store in your local area and kind of scan all the things that you want and then say what university you're going to. And then they will just have all your stuff that you said that you wanted and that you bought at that location in whatever state you're going to. So I went to Bed Bath & Beyond in my town. And then there's one like not far from Santa Clara's campus, and they had it all just sitting right there. So I didn't have to bring out like sheets and towels and stuff like that because I just ordered it through there. So there are some really cool online resources so that you don't have to like bring everything with you. Yeah, I don't know. Do you all have any other tips?
Oh, real quick, vacuum seal bags. You can get them at Target. They are huge and you can fit literally anything in there. And then you just attach your vacuum and it turns it into like a small little compact little thing, like big jackets, sweaters. I remember packing and I also flew out. So I had a bag limit and I just shoved everything in the vacuum seal bags. They're magical. Definitely recommend.
Perfect. Okay. So the next one, Rob, Isha, whoever wants to answer this one. Each of you has had opportunities to stand out in unique ways and attain scholarships. Would you say as out-of-state students, these opportunities and scholarships are easy to attain?
Yeah, I can just say I don't suppose that in my experience that my status as being an out-of-state student has had a profound impact on like my ability to get involved on campus or to get the specific scholarship that I did. I think that in particular that scholarship, the Johnson Scholarship, is definitely a lengthy process. And so like as that's like one of the few scholarships I think that we have on campus that actually involves like writing an essay and like going through an application process. Other than that, as far as I know, all of our merit scholarships you're automatically considered for upon applying to Santa Clara. So that's definitely a big plus as well. Also something that I considered, I won't lie, while I was applying to Santa Clara, I was like, oh, don't have to do twice so much work. That's nice. But then as far as the opportunities go, I mean, being an out-of-state student, I don't think has a appreciable impact on like whether you're able to get involved on campus.
Yeah, to add on to that, I definitely agree. I don't think being an out-of-state student has really impacted the opportunities that come across. I think that the main thing, we kind of touched on this before, but the small class size and the relationship with professors has definitely been the biggest factor in finding ways to kind of stand out and find opportunities. For example, I do on-campus research in a chemistry lab with a professor who I actually had first quarter freshman year for just Gen Chem. And because our class was so small, which at other universities, Gen Chem is like 300, 400 students in a giant lecture hall. There were like 15 of us in a little classroom. And because there were so few of us, I actually got to have a kind of a personal relationship with my professor, which led to then getting offered a research position. So I would say being out of state doesn't really make as much of a difference as just being engaged in class and and Santa Clara offers kind of a good starting point because you have those small class sizes.
Yeah, would echo what they said. So this next one, do you guys travel back home for holidays? So I think this is pretty dependent on everybody's personal experience. I know for me, I've gone home for Thanksgiving every year. We get the whole week off, so that's worth the flight home for my family. And then I'll always go home for winter break because that's around 3 to 4 weeks off. So again, worth the flight. In terms of like spring break, I think that's very dependent on what people want to do. You get a whole week off, so some people will go home. I took that opportunity to try to go on an immersion trip, which, you know, we all ended up having to go home at that point anyway. So didn't get to do that, but some more people will kind of stay in the California area for spring break. But I think for like the two big holidays, a lot of people will go home. It's more of like smaller ones for, you know, Easter, things like that, where you won't find that a lot of out-of-state students will go home just because you can't always justify the cost of a flight to get back home for that holiday. But Isha, Rob, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that. Okay, so this next one, did any of you have trouble adjusting to the quarter system?
I definitely did. I think that, as Sydney touched on earlier, starting later than everyone, it kind of built the anticipation up. So I was like watching all my friends from home kind of go through this process a month and a half before I did. So by the time I got there, I was like, okay, it's go time. I think that the hardest part of being on a quarter system comes in the winter and spring quarters, because fall quarter is lovely. It's 10 weeks, so short, so nice. And then you get to go home for 4 weeks and see your family again. And then you have winter quarter, another 10 weeks, and finals. And you have one really quick week and you do a whole nother quarter, which I found freshman year to be a bigger issue than I expected. I burned out a little. It was hard. And especially just getting a little homesick at that point of like, oh my God, I've been here forever. But I would say in terms of the positives of the quarter system, I'm so grateful that I'm on a quarter system school, just having the opportunity to take more classes, because we take 12 classes a year instead of 8. So many people are double majors. I'm a double major, and it hasn't been an issue at all getting any of those requirements down. And I just feel like there's more freedom to kind of explore and take a random class that just sounds cool because you have so many spaces to fill. But yeah, I think just in terms of the like scheduling, it was a little hard to adjust.
Yeah, that was perfect. I would definitely agree. Things move very fast, especially academically on the quarter, which I think is both a blessing and a curse, because I've definitely been in classes that I haven't loved, and it's only 10 weeks and you can do anything for 10 weeks if you have to. But definitely like your midterms will start week 4 and they'll go till week 10. So balancing that work can be challenging, but your professors are really great resources, and you'll have other classmates who are in the same boat and who can help you out with that. But yeah, that was a really good answer, Isha. Okay, for the next one, as a first year student, since we can't have cars, what resources does the school offer to help students get around? So I know that there are zip cars on campus that students can rent. I've done it before. It's really, really easy. You just go online, and then there's 2 or 3 different garages that have zip cars. So you can just walk to those, use those. Caltrain is directly across the street from the front of campus, so super easy with that. The bus is right around campus as well. So there definitely are resources right around campus that will help you get places. And that's not just like an Uber or something like that, which are very popular, but not always the most safe option at this current moment. Okay, this is a good question, and anybody can answer. How do you feel like you're a part of SCU when you're not physically there?
That is a good question. I feel like that is definitely very applicable, especially considering that we all got sent home at the end of winter quarter last year pretty abruptly, and no one was really prepared for that. So we had our winter quarter finals online last year, and then we had our entire spring quarter online, and then fall is, of course, completely online. So I think a lot of people are experiencing trying to feel part of the community while not being here. It was hard. I think that especially just as everyone was trying to adjust to online learning, it was difficult, like professors not knowing how to work Zoom, so you could never see anyone's faces. But I would say, I think that keeping close contacts with all of my good friends really made me feel like I wasn't so far away. It was definitely difficult, and I felt like a little homesick for school in a weird way. But I think just there are so many amazing communities on campus that are so easy to become a part of. Like our a cappella group kept in touch. My friends and I would Zoom all the time and have like little get-togethers virtually. So I think just leaning on your support systems and that community is so important when you can't physically be here.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely challenging. I mean, being like, having to do learning virtually and feeling like the only way that you have to like connect with people via Zoom is like, that's definitely tough, and it wears on you a little bit. But yeah, I mean, just like Isha said, just like trying to make sure that you're staying connected with the groups that you care about, I think is the best way to go about it. The reality is that we're like living through a tough time right now where it's hard to feel like you are connected to the groups that you felt so connected to before. And it's something that we all just, have to deal with in our own unique ways. So I wish that we could offer a better answer than that, but yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. We're living in a really weird time, and it's hard to stay connected, but I've been very impressed with how creative people have gotten to still have some sort of normalcy amongst all of this craziness. So yeah, really great answers. Is it difficult to switch majors? It depends on, Isha, take it. You raised your hand.
I have had so many majors. My freshman year, I did not know what I was doing, and I was in the registrar office literally every other week submitting a different form so when you want to change your major, it depends on which school you're in. So I'm in the School of Arts and Sciences, which has a wide selection of majors. And so my process looked like, basically I printed a form off online, and then I took it to the chair of the department that I was trying to switch into, and they signed it, and then I just took it to the office, and right now that's an online, so even easier. So, and I switched majors at one point. I was a triple major. Like I really experimented a lot with, so I can safely say I did not have a hard time at all. It's a very accessible process, at least when you're switching from majors within your own school. It is difficult if you want to, for example, switch from arts and sciences to like the business school, just because the schools are based on kind of like how many seats there are, like the capacity. So because the business school is smaller, there are less spaces to fill. So it's always easy if you're switching from engineering or from business into arts and sciences, because arts and sciences is so big, there's a lot of space. But it is kind of a more rigorous process if you're trying to go from arts and sciences to business or to engineering. So that's definitely more difficult and takes probably some more thought.
Perfect. Okay. My scheduled trip to visit campus in the spring was canceled. What's one thing I should know about campus? Good question. For me, I think the one thing that you can't get online through a virtual campus tour that you can feel when you're in person is the community. And I hate to bring that word up again, but when you're walking around campus on a tour, a lot of times you're going in between classes. So you'll constantly see people who are like saying hi, talking in between classes. When I walk to class, or when I used to walk to class, I would always see at least 2 to 3 people that I knew on my walk. And most of the time it was more than that. Like, I feel like you can really feel the community and feel the warmth of the students at Santa Clara when you're actually there in person, and you can't get that same experience when you're just looking at something online. So for me, that's the one thing about campus that I think is really hard to translate if you're not there in person. Isha, Rob, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, the one thing that I would add to that is just the kind of like welcomingness that, which I think as you physically being here is just this story. So when I was looking for schools, I did the, you know, different name for it. We call it like shadow SCU, where you come and you stay on campus, probably a first year, maybe a sophomore. And so I shall not be named. But when I was there, the person who was hosting me, like I got to know his friends a little bit through. We like went to the dining hall, and then like at night we like he went to like an empty classroom and like did homework, and I like just like sat CU visit, which is funny. But then when I came to Santa Clara, like I met this guy who was hosting me. We immediately just like went to like the lawn in front of Swig, which I can also see from where I'm sitting right now, and is like the biggest building on campus. And we played frisbee and spike ball with his friends. And then that night we uh, like he was part of the club tennis team, and he was just like, oh, you play tennis? Yeah, do you want to come play tennis too? And so like this like club team was like willing to just have me like walk on and just like kind of like play around with them. I played so terribly. We played doubles, and I think I like maybe like quintuple faulted or whatever, like 5 or 6 faults in a row was basically how bad I was playing. But like nonetheless, they were still so welcoming, and for me that was like kind of a big telltale sign that like the community at Santa Clara is a little bit different.
To add on to that, I'm gonna be superficial. Campus is straight up beautiful. Like there's the community, there's the welcomingness, but this the fact that like no matter how stressed you are about school, no matter like how homesick you are, it's hard to be too down when you're surrounded by palm trees and flowers. And that's the one thing I wish you guys could see campus. Spaces themselves, we have like a quad outside some of the freshman dorms where on a Friday afternoon there's always frisbee, music playing, picnics, spike ball. It's just the environment of it is just so lovely. Literally, whenever my parents visit, my dad is like, I'm in paradise. Like my parents are obsessed with it here. They're like, you can smell the flowers as soon as you step out of the airport. So just to add on to the heartwarming ones, it is just so lovely and beautiful here. You can't beat it.
Amazing. Yeah. Great answers, everybody. Okay, so it looks like we only have time for like one more question. So we'll end with this one. What do each of you wish you had known as freshmen, and any advice for incoming freshmen? So when I would consider that I wish I had was the size of the university. I wanted kind of I knew what I wanted to study, but I didn't care what size the school was. When I was in elementary school, my graduating class was 11 kids, and so I'd had both extremes. And I was like, yeah, I can deal with whatever. But classes here, I didn't realize how much of an impact small class where the professors actually knew my name and there was opportunities for discussion and collaboration. I think if I had gone to the other school that I was considering, which was a much, much larger university, I would have been miserable. I would have just been a random face in a lecture hall of 300, and that would not have worked for me. But I didn't know that before I came to school, and I hadn't considered it before I came to school. So luckily, it all worked out, but it's not something that I considered, but I think it is a huge factor in your experience at whatever university you decide to go to, especially in the academic setting. And so consider the size of the school, and remember that half of your experience is academics, but half of your experience is social than that. So take advantage of asking students who actually go to that university what their experiences are like, what their social life is like, because you're not in class for 6 hours a day anymore. You're only maybe in class for 2 or 3. So you have a lot of extra time to do things. So remember.
Say very quickly, started out in the School of Engineering and then decided to switch to the School of Arts and Sciences. That program seemed to fit better with the kind of learning that like I enjoy the most. And it like kicking myself a little bit in that I don't have a ton of wiggle room left in my schedule for picking up like other fun classes that I would want to do. For instance, I'll just give a very quick plug, like of the short like experience that I've had with like the environmental studies program, like that program is so fantastic, and I wish that I had more like chances to take classes within that program. So I really story to tell, and that like that's what I can offer.
Similar to Sydney, I didn't think about location academic schedules. So being on a quarter system, I kind of assumed it wouldn't make a difference. And luckily, I've actually turned out to prefer a quarter system, but there is a difference between a quarter school and a semester school. Kind of how we touched on earlier, your schedule is different. The pace is a little bit quicker. And also like just you're in classes for shorter amounts of time. So there's more time to experiment, but also less time if you're really into a class and committed to it. It's only 10 weeks. Those things I didn't think would matter, like size and academic schedule, they do matter.
Yeah, okay, so with that, we're out of time. I want to thank you all for all your questions. I'm sorry that we didn't get to, and feel free to email the admissions office. We would love to answer anything, and good luck with your search, and I hope that everybody is staying safe and staying healthy. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.